Hey, everybody. So as I mentioned over on Instagram, and I've mentioned on Facebook, we are going live this evening. I am really, really excited to have Allison Roberts joining us this evening. She has been a client of mine for a while. And a lot of you ask me on a regular basis, so can I talk to somebody who has used this for fertility? What are my chances of getting pregnant when I'm in my later 30s? Questions like that. And so Allie has graciously offered to share her story with us, and talk about her experience working with me and her fertility journey, to the birth of her little girl. So thank you so much, Allie, for joining us this evening and for sharing your voice.
Thanks for having me. So I have had I started out with a period that just was irregular. It came and went. There was no predicting it. It lasted forever, or it was only one day. Growing up. And then in college, I started to suffer from horrible cysts. And so I went on birth control to control it. It was the only option that was available to me, was to use hormones. And so I started using that. And then I wanted to use like the lowest hormone level possible. Then I started getting migraines, and it wasn't enough to control the cysts. So it was a big fluctuation of going back and forth of all these different drugs to try and control it. So I was having an entire week of migraines while I was on birth control, and then I was having ovarian cyst pain. It was just horrible. So fast forward, my husband and I moved to Seattle, and he was deployed. And so we, wanted to take precautions. So I was still on birth control, trying to, we weren't quite ready to start our family. And I had a Nexplanon implant in, and it was coming to the end. I needed to get it taken out. And I was talking with Adrian because I didn't want ovarian cyst pain if I wasn't taking birth control, but I didn't want to be on birth control so I could have a baby. And so I really wasn't sure what my other options were. I was incredibly terrified. I mean, like, this ovarian cyst pain was kind of like my appendix was bursting. Like, that's how it felt for like an entire week, during my cycle. And so, and then since my period had been so up and down, fluctuating, there was no way to how long it was going to be there, things like that. I was like, how are we ever going to get pregnant if I can't even predict when my period's going to come, when I'm ovulating, that kind of stuff. So right as soon as I got my implant taken out, I started steaming, just those days after my period, like the dirty red blood, dark blood. And I noticed a difference right away. My periods got shorter, so they were only like 3 or 4 days long instead of, I was having 7 to 14 day periods on the pill and on the Nexplanon. And sometimes it would only be like, 2 weeks of period and then a week off and then another 2 weeks. I mean, like, how, it was horrible. And then my husband comes home from deployment, and we can't even like be together because I'm on my period all the time. So it was, really frustrating. And so by steaming, my period was shortened. It was healthy. It was predictable. It came the same time every month, every 28 to 29, 30 days, which was fabulous. So that was back in 2019, December of 2019. or December of 2018 going into 2019 that I started working with you. I started steaming. So I steamed for that whole year. And then in 2020, we decided that we were ready to start our family. And so it was pretty easy just working with you. Hey, when should I steam? What kind of herbs and things should I be using? Obviously, I got my little I don't know what it's called, my little sauna from you. So that's made it much more comfortable. The whole process has been great. And so, we started trying, if you will, in November. Basically, we tried not get pregnant. We weren't really like trying. And then didn't really do anything in December. And then January, we got pregnant. So actually, today is the 1 year anniversary of finding out that we were pregnant. So it was very exciting. Yeah.
This is amazing timing to have this conversation.
I was just like, and I didn't even really know because I was tracking my period and I tracked it wrong in the tracker. Like it tracked for 2 weeks instead of just one. And so we didn't even know that we had, done things at the right time and stuff like that. So, then we progressed to the next stage. Adrian, you worked with me with my pregnancy as far as like what foods to eat, how to stay hydrated, all those kinds of things to make sure I had a healthy pregnancy. And then when we got to the time of labor, Adrian, you helped me not go into labor, but to be ready, increasing my circulation by steaming right at the end there. Just really working with me to make sure I was eating foods and strengthening muscles and doing all that stuff to make sure that I was ready to go into labor, which made me feel a lot better as a first-time mom. I had a lot of anxiety about what to expect and how it was going to hurt and how am I going to recover and, all these things. Am I strong enough to do this? I've heard of all these, pelvic floor problems and stuff like that. And I was really worried that I would have things like that. And then our little girl came with about a week of pretty extensive steaming, which was fine. Like 4 times a day.
I think it's a little intense there at the end.
Yeah. But she made her appearance, and labor, it wasn't fun, but it wasn't horrible. She was a little bit crooked, so it took a little while to get her out. But yeah, it was an easy process. And then for recovery, I was very surprised. I only bled for like 3 or 4 days. And then I was able to start steaming right away and get my recovery going. And ever since then, I've just been steaming 3 times a week just to prevent my period from coming back, just because who wants to deal with nursing and recovery and periods and new momming and all that stuff. So, so that's been great. And just working with you to know when I'm ovulating to make sure that we're not having another new little one quite yet. We're not quite ready. We're still figuring out the first one. So all those things. So yeah, you've been instrumental in, helping me through the fear of not being on traditional birth control hormones and stuff like that, helped me through the process of getting pregnant and supporting my body through pregnancy, and then supporting through labor, and then now after labor from recovery and postpartum. So yeah, it's been really good. I'm glad that I didn't have to go through this process without you. I don't know what I would have done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that so much. A big part of what got me into this work is the lack of support that I had in my postpartum recovery. And it really changed the quality of my health and the quality of my life for quite a few years after I had my daughter. And so I love your story, and I love hearing your story and how you have come out the other side of the big task of building a small person in your body. And then birthing said small person, right?
Yeah.
Because, that's no small task. Um, but if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit, in the very beginning when we first started working together, one of your concerns was age. Not that I want to like point on that button or anything, but I do want to bring it up because it is something that is a huge concern for a lot of my clients. And I think it's just kind of natural for us as women to feel like there's this huge ticking time clock that's going, hey, your fertility window is running out. And you're like, no, I'm not ready for that. So, you are a career woman, you are, a professional woman, you did professional studies after, pursuing the career that you have now. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that coming into this process with me and going, so Adrienne, the steaming thing's really going to work, huh?
So like she said, so I went to college and then I got an associate's degree after my bachelor's, and then I went to law school, and then I worked and I met my husband when I was 31, almost 32. And then, and he is in the military. So he was deployed basically 6 months out of 12, home for a couple months, gone, back and forth. And then we moved to Seattle, and he was on a boat that was gone 10 months of the year out of 12. So basically not good time having a baby. And so I am now 37, and I just had our daughter. So, scared. They say that fertility reduces as you get older and that your body is not able to bounce back well, and all kinds of things. And honestly, I feel like I'm healthier now than I was before I had my daughter. So part of that is nursing, helps me, with calories and stuff like that. But, having the steaming and just the care that you provide has been really great. So it's definitely possible. I am that struggle with some of the things that I struggled with, that they don't need to. So yeah, I feel good. I'm very, very thankful for the way that things went, and just hearing horror stories about other people's birth experiences and pregnancies and labors and recovery. So I've been truly lucky to have this as an option.
Thank you for mentioning that, because that's actually another reason why, I want people to know that this is an option, because when you do the labor prep steaming that you were talking about, it drastically reduces the amount of trauma that the pelvic floor experiences. It helps with circulation and with your body meeting all of the parameters that it needs to in order to have a successful, healthy labor. So not only pre-delivery, but also post-delivery, it makes a really big difference as well. Do you actually mind sharing the conversation that you had with the labor and delivery nurse afterwards, about their surprise in how quickly the bleeding stopped?
Yeah, so I had and her checkup was Friday morning after we'd been out of the hospital, and I had already stopped bleeding by then. And the labor and delivery, we had a labor and delivery nurse that was in training to become a nurse practitioner. So she was shadowing my OB and our pediatrician. She's the same. And so she was like, what do you mean you're not bleeding anymore? And I was like, no, I'm done. And she's like, I have to know this. And I was like, okay, this sounds crazy. And this is what I thought when Adrienne, when you first told me about this, I was like, that's crazy. But then I did some research. She's like, oh, well, there's this ancient practice called steaming, and it's used for these things, and it brings about healing. And I was just like, it just sounds like that kooky far left tree hugger kind of stuff. That's not really for me. But I trust you. I already knew you, so that was part of it. But I did some extra research before jumping in, and that goes back hundreds of years that this practice has been used, and all the examples that it has been used. Western medicine gravitates toward medicine. I mean, we all are aware of that prescriptions and big pharmacy and all those kinds of things, and those are definitely good, and they have their own purposes. But it's nice to have another option, especially when, taking hormones to control my cysts is not an option in order to be able to get pregnant. So for me, that the only option that big medicine had for me, that Western medicine had for me, would not work for my purposes. And so, I'm sure that there are other people that are also in that situation. And the other thing is that, like, with hormones like that, you can have miscarriages afterward if you get pregnant right away, or you're just, it causes a lot of issues. And so I had concern about that as well. Mm-hmm. And so by steaming for an entire year before we even decided to get pregnant, I knew that my body was in a good place and ready to, and having my period every 28 days, and it was only for 4 days. It was really easy, honestly. And so being able to do that external research, get that verification that it is a widely used practice, and then trusting learning about your accreditation and stuff like that. So I jumped in.
Well, I'm so glad you did.
Me too.
Because she's beautiful.
I don't know if she's still awake or not.
Is she right there? So, you actually touched on a really good point about long-term birth control use. It's something that I have a couple of blogs out about, but when you use hormonal birth control for a long period of time, it can leach very key nutrients out of your system, in addition to the fact that it is designed to interrupt a healthy hormone cycle in your body. So it's designed to prevent pregnancy. So of course it's going to be a little more difficult to try to get pregnant right afterwards, for the majority of people. Yes, there are some miracle people out there that get pregnant in the first cycle after they discontinue the use of birth control, but it's more rare than it is the norm. So giving yourself that year, the way that you just laid that out is exactly how I would recommend for most people to do it. Mm-hmm. Give your body a chance to get back into that 28 to 30 day cycle cadence with a 4 to 5 day long period. Your experience before you started steaming with me is a very, very common one, where people experience periods that are longer than that. There's a lot of brown, there's a lot of cramping, cysts are very, very common.
I had a lot of cramping. I forgot about that. A lot of cramping. Yeah. And I don't have that anymore. I
was going to say, if you forgot about it, it's because it's not there anymore. Like to hear that. But that's a really common shared experience for a lot of people. And the beautiful part of steaming is, like, it doesn't inhibit your body from having this normal pattern, and if anything, it improves it over a period of time. Do you feel that your results were fairly quick when you first started steaming to achieving that healthy cycle?
So before, my period was roughly on a 26 day schedule. So it wasn't even long enough, honestly, between periods. If you average it out, it was 26 days. It wasn't always. Sometimes like 14, but yeah, so within like 2 months, I had gotten up to 27 days and then 28. And so it was almost instantaneous for me, honestly. The turnaround that I was able to see was fabulous. And the reduction in the amount that, the flow was a lot lighter, easier, no cramping. Obviously, I completely forgot that cramping was a thing because I don't have that anymore.
Yay, that's what we want for everybody. Yes, it is possible to have a cramp-free period.
I used to have to take like Midol or Advil. I would get headaches, I would get cramping, I would get bloating, and I don't have any of that anymore. I haven't had that in years now, since working with you. So yeah, it's been really nice.
I love it. I love it. So before we sign off, and I want to thank you again so much for sharing your experience with my audience and just the entire process. I love, one of the things that brings me the most joy in my practice, honestly, is working with somebody from that hellish period that, they'd rather do without, all the way through the, wow, I can have a period with no cramps. And then, that positive pregnancy test. I get text messages of pregnancy tests and emails of pictures of pregnancy tests. And, honestly, that's like one of my greatest joys. I
texted you before I called my parents. So.
We won't tell them. But it's that kind of news is exactly why I do this, to, because it brings me so much joy to be able to make this possible for families. So, and
that's honestly why I'm here. I obviously want to support your business because you've helped me so much, but honestly, I want every woman to know about this because it has completely changed my life. And why wouldn't you want to share something that you find is so good? My health is completely changed. And so I want to share that with other people as well. So that's why I'm here.
Well, I really appreciate you being here and for you working with me and taking a chance on this crazy STEAM thing, because it has the potential to change the quality of life for so many people in literally every phase of their life. From the time their periods start, I look at this and go, oh my God, I wish I knew half of the things when I started my period then that I know now. Because, and my husband used to laugh at me and ask if I was going to rage at my computer when I was doing my training, because every single class I was like, why wasn't I taught this stuff? Right. And so for me, it's become this huge soapbox of, you have options. Let me tell you what your options are. Or, hey, these foods are going to work with your body or work against your body, right? And little tiny things like that make such a difference in terms of your quality of life, your health, your vibrancy, your fertility. I know that I'm so glad that you said you feel healthier at your stage of life than you did even 10 years ago, because I feel the same way. And it's really amazing when you know how to take care of your period health and all of that. What a huge difference it makes for your immune system. I don't get sick even half as often as I used to. And I have an autoimmune condition, and I still don't get sick nearly as often as I used to. And it really does come back to how you care for yourself during your bleeding days. So I won't take any more of your time because I know you have a beautiful little girl to go attend to.
In the other room. I do want to just the bumbo. I just want to clarify. She does not say. I just want I don't want any comments on your page. We practice safe seating, and it's just we got it off the floor. That's the only reason it's up there. Just wanted to put that out there. Safe sleep, safe seating, safe all of the things. But I just wanted to know that. She's a little cranky. Otherwise, I'd pull her over here for everybody to see. But she marked me before. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, it's dried. But I had a nice spit up spot, and my husband was like, not to get ready until 3 minutes before you're doing whatever you're doing. It's my mistake, but
Well, you're in that phase of life, though, that your outfit is not complete without a little bit of spit up.
It's true. Well, so we had an English bulldog that used to, like, as soon as you put on new pants, she would wipe her face along the back of your legs. And now I have a baby that wipes her face on my clothes. So I feel like I'm just getting marked and, like, you know, I belong to her. So it makes me feel good.
It's a mark of love, Mom.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Allie. I really appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
And for all of you, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. If you or someone you know is considering getting pregnant, feel free to share this video. We want all the women to know that this is an option that is available to them to support their fertility and their health and to help them conceive. And join me tomorrow. I have an exciting announcement for all of you as well that actually has to do with this whole crazy fertility thing.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you again and have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye.